car's crashing into the wall. Bowman.
On the razor's edge, these drivers, and maybe just stepped over that edge for Alex Bowman. A little bit slow.
Oh, we got another spin.
Another one.
We backed it in.
Same exact area of the racetrack, 48.
Oh, and into the wall, the 9 of Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott into the wall. You see the fire coming out the right side.
Heavily damaged.
Climbs out of the race car, but the fire's still burning. Through 3 and 4 for the final time and looking for career win number 3. It's going to come at Texas. Tyler Reddick wins.
Let's go! Great job, guys. Awesome, man. Really proud of you, little buddy. That's how we tell everybody we ain't done yet. We're going to win some more races.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of NASCAR's Inside the Race, the show that digs deeper into all the action we saw on Sunday in Texas. I'm Alan Cavano, joined by two of the best in the business from the Motor Racing Network, Todd Gordon, and from NBC Sports, Steve Letarte. So much to talk about. Texas playoff race from beginning to end, 500 crazy miles.
Yeah, 500 miles. It was a 500-mile challenge. We have one more 500-mile race to end the year at Talladega. But I call it the last true test because it's a downforce track, in and out of the gas, in and out of traffic. It was a test. We had some weather, we had some tires, we had some chaos. It was a long Sunday afternoon, but a lot of storylines.
So much for crew chiefs to think about, both on the track and up on the box.
Yeah, definitely was one of those that I would have thought would be straightforward with some of the challenges we had weather-wise and tire-wise on the different cars. Definitely brought some strategy pieces and had to call a really good race.
Yep, and that's what ultimately won this. We'll talk about it all. Let's talk about what's coming up on the show. Here's what's on the box. We had a battle of attrition, risk versus reward for a lot of these drivers. That was the name of the game on Sunday as they battled the track, weather, tire issues. We will dig into it all. The winner, T-Rex in Texas. We'll show you how Tyler Reddick earned his path to victory lane, especially after early trouble early on in the day for that 8 car. And of course, the ups and downs for the playoff drivers. Some got into each other. Some were able to climb out of a big hole early on in the race, and others, well, their day just ended early, like that fire for Chase Elliott. So much to talk about. Let's start with the big topic that so many are talking about in terms of the tires. There were issues with teams going into turn 4 and cars having to deal with that. Where do we start on a topic like that? Because it's not just one issue.
Well, so I think that's the point when we talk about tires and tires that can't seem to handle the situation they're put in. First of all, I believe Goodyear brings a tire that they believe has to put on a good show for the fans, give the tire or the drivers the opportunity to have cars that can handle good and bad. Crew chiefs can make adjustments. It's a lot harder than people want to give it credit for because so many things kind of go into that recipe, right? There were 220 sets of tires used in the race. 8 right rear tires didn't make it through. What's an acceptable amount? What's not? I'll be honest, Todd, I go back and forth, right? I think tire failures, while perhaps not popular, does test the teams and the drivers and their ability. They all have the same parts and pieces, who can apply them most. But at times we forget. There's a driver going 180 miles an hour into the corner when these tires go down, so it's a complicated topic.
There is, but years ago we used to have, with the right fronts, we used to have a right front minimum air pressure. You and I both lived through that. And we all asked for that to go away and said, let us as crew chiefs actually control how much risk they're taking on. And that's what the box that they're in right now. There's so many settings, whether it be camber, whether it be air pressure, whether it be how much load goes into the tire. Now that these cars ride around as low as they do in the back and the shock stops at times they're engaged, there can be a lot of load in the tires. And Texas in itself, with resin on the racetrack, with nightfall coming forward, and the tunnel bump into turn 4, there's just a lot of things that go into this whole factor of what happens with tire longevity.
We saw some of that. We have plenty of video to show about examples. This was the 19 going into that 3-4. You said we're talking about the tunnel bump. We're talking about setups. So many factors go into the tires?
Yes. Yeah, and really here, I think, Steve, you talked about a little bit on the program as well. The bump and the tunnel bump in turn 4, at the bottom of the racetrack, it's a bump. As you move up the racetrack, it becomes a much bigger bump.
Yeah.
And these cars are riding around as low as they can be. These guys are, crew chiefs are put in a position. We've talked about it. They put camber in these tires because there's a response to it. There's speed in that. That's one thing you'll do. But running that camber, it's all on one sidewall, and those bumps, like that tunnel bump, they're all shocking one side of the tire. And it's hard on it.
Yeah, the simplest way to look at this, as you mentioned it, all the wrecks are in turns 3 and 4. It comes down to risk versus reward because there is a reward. I know it's a popular statement, but here's the thing. The reason the teams are on the edge is because if you don't live on the edge, you're going to be slower. If I go and I'm conservative on camera, and I'm conservative on tire pressure, and I'm conservative on my rear height, and Todd isn't, if he doesn't blow a tire, he is going to beat me silly for 500 miles. But when he blows a tire, I sit back and look so smart because, I was smarter than him, I was more conservative. How many times did we go conservative and not see tire issues, right? That's really the challenge here. The question is, what is acceptable? Are we okay with tires going down? A part of me is okay with it because teams do have most of the same parts and pieces. I believe this is a new challenge that the teams have to understand. You mentioned air pressure, you mentioned a camber. They're the easy ones to understand. The rear of the car, if you raise the rear of the car, you make less rear downforce, the right rear tire is loaded less. That is a fact. Less downforce, slower car. Less load, more tire life, right? It comes down to what is your risk, what is your information. The challenge for me goes back to the safety aspect for the drivers. If there wasn't a driver, this was a road control car, I'd have zero issue with basically the outcome hurting people in points. That's not the issue for me here. It's the poor drivers that have to ride in these things because I believe all the teams that had issues either knew or either didn't know but were closer to the edge than the teams that didn't.
We saw the 19, we saw the 9, the 4, a lot of these cars in the lead when these tire issues were happening. As a crew chief, you're seeing this happen. Do you have to change your game? Do you have to change your decision making? Does that run through your head?
I think as you look, yes, it does. And the biggest thing you're going to do is you're going to start looking at the tires that come off the car when somebody else has a failure. You're going to take those tires apart. You're actually going to cut them loose and see what the belt package looks like because this is not wearing the rubber off the tire. This is a construction failure that happens within the tire. You'll cut that back apart. NASCAR or Goodyear's done a great job of doing that for us in the past. During the race, they'll cut tires loose to look at what your tires look like and know whether you're on the edge or you're a little bit more conservative where you can go a little longer. Those are decisions that information that helps us make better decisions.
In the back of my mind, I have the question, everybody's like, we need practice. Well, I would flip it the other way. There was a Miami test this week. I have to just ask myself, what did somebody learn at Miami? Did we get a little aggressive on air? Did we adjust the camber a little bit? And man, there it was, right there on the stopwatch. Did everybody, I don't want to say get complacent because these crew chiefs work night and day. They work circles around the schedule I try to keep. I remember what that job was like. But I also remember the pressure to perform. They are as competitors get. So when right there, if a tenth of a second is right there at your fingertips, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about non-measurable moments. Right. We're talking about real speed. Air out of the tire, faster. Back of the car down, faster. It is real speed when you make adjustments.
So if you look at this one right here and go ahead and pause it, when you talk about camber in the tire, the top of the tire being, and Steve, I'll let you draw on it for it, but the top of the tire being inboard here.
Right, like right there, it's basically the top is in and the bottom is out if you can imagine it, right? It's if you stood behind the car, it's tipped in.
Yeah, and by having that angle in it, you're right on the inside sidewall, but the tire's got some angle in it, and that actually makes better grip when it rolls up, gets in the lateral part of the corner.
And teams control it. That's a controlled risk at times.
It is, and there's a couple things that are different with this car this year. The minimum, or the amount of camber that they're allowed to put in these cars, it's about a half a degree more than we had in the car last year. But not only that, we now have independent suspension, so we can gain more camber as it travels. So you can put yourself in a box where you've got a lot more camber in these things, but that's not the only piece that's happening here. It has to do with load, it has to do with air pressure, it's multifaceted, and all of that goes into the decisions that we used to make, and you don't have a notebook like we had. We knew through multiple years with the old 15-inch tire how far we could go and what to look for. It's all new this year and something that the teams are having to identify where their risk-reward cutoff point is and what they can go, how far they can go.
I see a lot of teams and a lot of crew chiefs, and I hear a lot of conversation about how we need to adjust the rule to open the box. I just think that people don't want to understand where they need to be in the box. That's as simple as it is in my opinion. And everyone has the same parts, everyone has the same tires, everybody has the same car, everybody's on the same track. They're not all the same. Some are faster than others. These are decisions that can lead to that, and that's the idea. The best way to think about these tires, think about a coat hanger. You've done it your whole life. The belts in these tires are like taking a metal coat hanger. You bend it. When it's low on air or tipped in or loaded wrong, every time it goes through the corner, it works. Well, what's a coat hanger do? It doesn't take very long, now it breaks. That's basically what happens to the tire. It works and works and works until finally something on the inside says no more, and then we see these failures.
Good discussion there. Look, it's high risk for some, high reward for others. We'll talk about that big reward. Getting the win was the number 8 car of Tyler Reddick, who had a heck of a day. He started with trouble, Steve, and ends up in victory lane. But there's no easy path to victory lane. That's what I like doing on the show, is showing the path to victory lane, because it's never easy, and the 8 car got there.
Well, the line graph shows the path clearer than anything. And when you talk about never easy, it wasn't easy. It started easy. I mean, look at the 8. This is the kind of day you're looking for. You have a pit stop. Oh, you get a little better. You move up, you move up, you move up, and then you drop. What is that drop? That drop was a vibration that forced a green flag pit stop. Now, fortunately, a caution came out just a few laps later. Right here, you're going to see it. He gets his free pass, and he starts back in the upward direction. But the line doesn't tell the whole story. For this, we really have to go to the video. The vibration is understood. Tyler Reddick says, man, I can't do it. I don't know if it's a loose wheel. I don't know if it's a tire. I don't know what it is, but I have a vibration. I come in. You never know where preparation is going to change your day. This pit stop for the 8. Watch the jack band when he goes to the left side. He has an issue with the jack. His preparation is unbelievable. He knows what to do right away. Look, jack doesn't work. Hands it off. The other one's right behind pit wall. Back to the left side. Jack up. I don't know the exact time. 1.5 seconds. If that jack band doesn't lay out his spare jack. I mean, how many times you use a spare jack, right? If the guy behind the wall isn't paying attention to take the jack out of his hands, they could lose multiple laps. They lose multiple laps. They live their life down here. You get 2 or 3 laps down, you are never going to get it back. That recovery by that jack man, that was the difference. That's what took this down and shot it back up in that direction right there with some good fortune, but not just good fortune. It took preparation.
Brand new race, Todd. When they start now, it's a brand new race for them.
Yeah, it is. And to what Steve was talking about, from that point when they got the lucky dog, lap 139, right down here at the, right down here, that's a point they start their mark back forward. The biggest thing I think that they did, that Randall Burnett did at this point, they made it all the way back up to, I think, 7th or 8th position here. Lap 198, caution comes out, decide that you're in a position, you could get a stage point or 2, but they're not racing for that. He goes ahead and pits, gives up some track position, but flips the stage here once he gets to this, to this one here, which is a stage end. He goes from being back in the 20s and comes out 4th because he flipped the racetrack around here. Red flag comes out. Within 10 laps after we went back after the red flag, he's in the lead and he's got control of the race.
I will add one thing. Way out here, it doesn't look like much. There's a little blip. That's a restart. He had control of the race, and think about this. He chose to stay out on the racetrack. I mean, he could have gave up all that track position he worked for, but he survived.
And in order to get to that point in 271, I think one of the key things that we'll show later, but is right here. At 245, they came to pit road, took 4 tires and fuel, which put them in a situation at 271, they can make the call for 2 tires because they don't need but less than 10 gallons of fuel. That set them up to win the race.
Yeah, we've got the video of them coming down pit road. Let's go down here.
Stop that right there. If you look at it right now, you've got the 24 and the 12. First 2 cars coming down pit road. Neither one of them stopped at 245. As we go forward here, you'll see that those 2 cars pit off, and they've got to stop for 4 tires and fuel here. While the rest of the guys that were behind them, actually, the 8 being the first of them, is going to roll off pit road.
So you think the 4 tire call is because they needed more fuel, though?
Yes, because they didn't come before. They had to put 2 cans of fuel in. And if you look at it here, go ahead and stop it right in here.
We're waiting for the guys that matter.
The first car back. Here's the 24. He's like 8th or 9th off pit road on 4 tires. The 12, who eventually finishes 4th, starts back another 5, 6, 7 spots. They're buried at a place that tire fall off didn't happen. Tire longevity was a concern, but the lap time stuck with it.
So there's this new thing. It's new because it's about a year old. We could have put a full tank of gas in when we put 4 tires on forever. The single lug, we talked a lot about what it would do, but what it did that some of us perhaps didn't consider is you could put tires on way faster than you could put 18, 19, 20 gallons of gas in your car. 15 is like the magic number. So to Todd's point, the tires we're seeing changed on the 12 and the 24 was purely because they needed more Sunoco fuel than the other cars.
Yeah, I feel like they probably had to come down pit road needing 14 gallons-ish. I don't know where the number is, but it's in that range where really the 8, the 22, the 31 finished up there on 2 tires. They were in single digits. They probably needed 6-7 gallons of fuel. It's just a difference of what they had to put on. When you've got to get to that second can, it takes, I mean, there's a second and a half of turnaround there.
Well, and here, this is the best way to, I know, to look at lap time. So this is just lap time, slower is higher. For the entire race, a good lap is about a 30 flat, about this area right here. First of all, look how much faster these lap times are. They're all down in like the 29.5 second range. The other thing to look at is look how flat it is. You know, normally tires start to wear and you slow down and you go up in this direction right here. Nope, they ran the same lap time. Kind of back to the tire conversation. Listen, the sun went down, the lights came on, the track gripped up. 2 tires at a, quote, high wear racetrack. Well, I don't know where the high wear and high grip, or low grip that went away. I mean, they ran the same lap time every single lap, it seemed like. 2 tires, old tires, it didn't matter. Flat and faster than they had been all day.
You know what I saw on that graph? There was no give up for
nothing.
Tyler Reddick.
No.
There was no worry, or if there was, he wasn't showing it with his accelerator or anything. No give up there.
And the third car that you had on that, you had the 8, the 22, and the 14, who actually didn't have tires when the 8 did.
Right.
They had nothing at that point.
Let's talk about the 14's day, because this is what championship runs, at least playoff runs, are made out of, right? Making the best out of something of a bad day, getting the best finish possible. We saw that from the 14. They end up with a top 5, but again, how they got there, not easy whatsoever. It was a busy first half of the race, Steve, for the 14.
This is a 5 ibuprofen day for the crew chief right here. And we take a look at the line for the 14 car. Look, what do you want to talk about? I mean, it's busy. It's chaos. Todd, you brought it up, and I think it's the perfect point, right? Switch over to our numbers right here. You want me to count them up? First half of the race, how many pit stops we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you said this one here, number 8. That was the magic stop for you all before lap 210.
Yeah, definitely. They worked on their car all day long. Ran in the 25th, 26th, 27th position. They were buried back there. They had to do something aggressive. This stop that you've got at lap, that 8th stop, which I'll highlight there, 198 again. Same place that Tyler Reddick flipped the field. They went ahead and got their stop out of the way. And then when the stage ended at 210, they went from 22nd to 11th. That got them track position.
So right here, basically what you're saying is because they pitted before the end of the stage, other people try to get some stage points, they win up. Now they're inside the top 15. And then other than kind of a pit cycle, which is what that is right there, they run inside the top 15, really the rest of the, only one pit. How about that? 8 pit stops before lap 210, 1 pit stop the second, I'll call it the last third of the race.
And really, if you look at it, this pit stop up here that we've got up here, that's at 2:55, just outside of the window where they could finish the race. But when you look at it here, we've had cautions we've had a lot of cautions. Caution laps actually got them where they could finish the race. They finished the race from this point at 2:55 on 70 some laps on tires and fuel.
And we know what those tires look like because Chase Briscoe was kind enough to show us. Look what this is right rear off his car, 60 laps green, 80 laps total. What do you look at that tire, Todd?
That's perfect.
Listen, I agree with him. There's a little wear right here. You see this fabric, I'm gonna draw on it and then clear it. So right there, when I clear that light area, that's actually the rubber being gone, the fabric coming through. Man, that would be a perfect. If we've used all our fuel, that's exactly how much tire I want to use up. I want to use every bit of rubber. You don't see any out here. This is the outer side of the tire. We talked about that camber. That's the idea, right? So it's tipped over. It's riding on the racetrack, if you can imagine, this end down. So it kind of rides like this, right? This end goes closer to the racetrack, and that's why that inside wears out.
Yeah, and it's to the point, when I say perfect, you've used up the usable rubber on the tread in the amount of fuel that you're going to have to. At this point, you're out of gas. You got to come put tires on anyway. You might as well use up every bit of that tire that you can. And with that camber, it makes lateral load. It makes the car faster through the corners. You want to use it up. You don't want to get any more than that, but that's using it to the extent we need it to.
And these are some of the decisions. Hey, if we're going to finish in the 20s anyway, why not make some of these decisions? And it paid off for the 14.
Yeah, definitely with a solid top 10 finish there at the end, and a day that they netted positive on points that really looked pretty ugly for the first half of the race.
Those are the moves that the 14, if they want to consider advancement, I just believe, and I think they believe, they're going to have to be the aggressor. They're going to have to put everyone else. Now, with everybody else having issues, maybe their strategy will change. But heading into Texas, I like the aggressive approach.
All right, and don't forget, I love all these graphs that we have. They have the cool driver compare tool on the NASCAR app, NASCAR.com during these races. Make sure you can check that out yourself while you're watching the races at home. Another big story of the week we got to talk about, the 11 and the 24, 2 playoff contenders that were having a good run. Let's set the scene here, because before their issues, they were having great days. We got the chart. We can show you where they were running in comparison to the eventual winner. Steve, show us where they were running.
All right, so there's a lot on here. Let's be real clear and real simple. The 24 is the brighter, the yellow graph. The 8 is the tan graph, the eventual winner. The bluish, purplish grass of Denny Hamlin. What matters is all right here. Forget about all the mess. Right here, you got the 24, the 11, the 8. The reason that's important is because the race winner is behind the 24 and the 11 before they decide to get into their skirmish on the racetrack or whatever we want to call this thing they got into. It looked like hard racing that kind of boiled over, right? It started on a restart. They got a little bit of high off the corner, and the 24 and the 11 got together. And then that was kind of, the end of the day for the 24. He said that he hurt his toe link. I don't know if it's true. I mean, look, I don't know. Listen, if I'm the crew chief for the 24, I'm not happy. If I'm the crew chief for the 11, I want to know, man, why are you so upset? It was no big deal. But then take a couple more looks at it. I can see the frustration. Then the caution comes out, and I'll let you be the decider, right? 11 in front of the 24, yellow lights on, contact, and the 11 goes and mows the grass on the infield. So that was the event. The 11 loses their track position, but both were ahead of Reddick before they get into this.
They were. And the one thing I think when you see the 11 spinning through the grass here, when he got backwards, the roof flap came up. And that roof flap coming up actually is cable tethered to the flap and the diffuser that comes down in case they get backwards for flying over. So the 11's pit stop after this ends up being a 13-second pit stop, which isn't a bad pit stop because they had to come back and reset that diffuser panel up to it as well. That lost him a little bit more track position because he really blended back out 4 or 5 spots. You had a better view of it, but it didn't seem like he lost all the track position.
No, well, it took a little bit because he went up and he showed his displeasure to William Byron, and then NASCAR had to figure out exactly where he was scored at the time of the yellow. But yeah, it was only a handful of spots. He did a nice job blending back in.
But let's take a look at the graph again because, we all want to look a little deeper. A lot of fans will see the 11 spin out and say, oh, his day was over then. But when we look at the strategy, look a little closer, their bet have already been made.
Yeah, I feel like if you pull that lap time or the position graph back up here, the piece that I feel like is a bigger issue with this whole strategy, everybody pits here at 271, 272, right? But if you look at it, the 8 cars going in an upward trajectory. The 24 and the 11 went down. Now we pointed out earlier that the 24 and 11 the 24 and 11 both took 4 tires there. The reason they took 4 tires there is because at this stop here, they didn't come. So they were back to in the early 200s. They burned off enough fuel. They had to put 2 cans of gas in for that last stop. They've buried themselves track position back at 245 when they didn't come with the guys that took 2 at the end.
So we heard Denny Hamlin say he thought he was in position to win the race, and I'm never going to disagree with the driver who likes his car and feels like he has track position. But what you're telling me, Todd, is that even before the highlight reel that everybody's talking about, the decision had already been made that probably was going to hinder the 24 and the 11 staying ahead of the 8.
I definitely feel that way. I feel like at 245, Randall Burnett made the call that won the race, and the 11 and 24 didn't come down with that call at the same time.
All right, the 8 gets the win because of coming in maybe at 245, had a little more fuel, allowed him for that 2-tire pit stop. He drove on to victory lane. Let's take a look at the playoff standings. I know Tyler Reddick no longer involved, but Joey Logano up there on plus 30 above the line, and then you look all the way to the right. Those are the 4 drivers. Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, Christopher Bell, Alex Bowman, technically out right now as we head to Talladega. What do you think, Steve?
Well, Talladega is the key word. I mean, Joe Logano has to love being at the top, but from Ross Chastain really to Austin Cindric, put a blanket over him. That can change in one slip of the wheel of one driver, and it can be none of these drivers right here. It could be a non-playoff driver who's having a good day and a block gone wrong, and everybody on this entire page could end up wrecked at Talladega. I think that's what scares everyone heading there.
I don't think there's anybody safe going to Talladega here. I mean, an accident that happens before stage 1, you get 0 points out of the day. Any one of these can be buried forward or back and end up back there with Christopher Bell and Alex Bowman in the 30-point range being back. It can be, Talladega's a wild card. We didn't think Texas would be, it was, and Talladega will be one as well.
All right, you both won big good races at Talladega. You both know the stress of being crew chiefs at Talladega. I'm glad you guys are sitting here not having that stress anymore because that's where they're going next week for the second race in this round, Talladega next week. The Yellowwood 500, it's going to be on NBC. Make sure you remember that, 2 p.m. Eastern on NBC, Talladega in the playoffs, drivers that need the points, that need to advance, and some drivers that just need to see that checkered flag. I can't wait for Talladega. Another good edition of NASCAR's Inside the Race. For Todd Gordon, Steve Letarte, I'm Alan Cavana. We will see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.
This year, see more. The full field of in-car cameras.